Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here with a really fun video, and that is I'm going to be talking about heirloom knitting, intentional knitting that you can pass down for many generations. Before I start off this video, I do have two really fun announcements to make. I'll just do it really quickly because you're here for the patterns. So first off, today is the day that I released my first paid for knitting pattern, which is the pattern for the Hermione hat. I think I showed this in my last knitting podcast. I definitely had one of them finished, which I believe to be this one. This is the version 1 and then this is version 2. So they are slightly different regards to pattern, because this one has more lace and then bubbles right there, and then this one more so has the bubbles all the way spread out to the top. So this has been released today. It is a pattern that comes, like I said, with two different versions. Then there are also 4 different brims and 4 different sizes. So if you calculate how many different hats you can make with this pattern, that is actually 32 different hats, which I find just super exciting that there are so many possibilities with just one pattern. The pattern is available for purchase on my Shopify website. It's mipithelabel.com. This has been my original business since 2022, back when I made clothing and those kinds of things. Then it's also available on my Ravelry, which is Mipi Knits. And then the other thing that I have to announce is that today is also a day for a test knit call. I uploaded this one on my Instagram yesterday, and you will be able to apply until the end of Sunday. So that's 2 more days and today as well. And it's for a little accessory pattern as well. It's called the Mila Mini Shawl, and I'll just quickly show you, because I've never really showed this in any of my knitting podcasts. It will be more in detail in the next one, but I'm just quickly going to say what the pattern is. It's just an all over lace and cable shawl. So this is about the size. It comes also in 2 versions, so we have version 1 or 2, I'm not sure, and then this one, which is just smaller and longer, and then it has the same lace repeated like again and again. These are knit on 4mm needles. It's a really fun and quick project. This one obviously uses a little bit more yarn, but this one is really good if you just have leftovers. I believe it uses like half a ball of fingering or half a ball of DK, just like barely anything for this one. So if you want to help me release this pattern, the test knit call will be in my bio. And those are all of the little announcements that I have to make. And now we can get into the patterns. I have chosen 15 knitting patterns today. Now when it comes to heirloom knitting, what really makes something an heirloom knit? In my opinion, it's something that's very timeless, something that in 30 years I can still imagine someone knitting this pattern. It's very classic, elegant and beautiful. That's what I think of when I think of heirloom knitting. And I wanted to do a knitting trends video, but then I saw so many knitting podcasts lately mention that in the last year they were just knitting a lot, and then this year they want to knit with more intention. So it felt like maybe that is a trend that's coming up. I also want to knit with more intention. So I thought this would be a really fun and inspiring video to bring to you. The first pattern that I have for you is the Barbu Blouse by Knitting for Olive. This is a beautiful all over lace blouse that is, I think it has like negative E, so it's quite form-fitting. And I just think it's the most beautiful and elegant blouse that I've ever seen. I think this is something that is very vintage inspired also. I can imagine it just someone wearing it in the 50s, but also in the 70s. It's a design that I think is very relevant. It's knit on 3mm needles, so it is knit with a fingering weight yarn. Then it comes in 10 sizes, which is really great because it's size inclusive, because it ranges from a 72cm chest to a 165cm chest. When I think of heirloom knitting, I also think of things that can be like displayed in a museum or in a beautiful vintage shop, and this is definitely one that I can envision there. And yeah, it's really beautiful. The next knitting pattern that I have is the Darjeeling Blouse by Trust the Mojo. This is a more summery design, but I think it's equally as beautiful as the previous one. It's knit in a sport weight yarn on 3.5mm needles, and it comes in 8 sizes, ranging from an 80cm chest to a 150cm chest. I really love the buttons that are in the front and a little lace on the hem and the sleeves, just that little picot edge. It's just a very beautiful blouse, and I think it's very classic. It can be styled with jeans as here in the photos, but also just with a skirt, trousers, basically anything. And I think, like I said earlier, I can still see someone wearing this in 30 years or 50 years, if of course it holds up that long. I think it's very elegant and timeless. The next pattern is something that is a little bit different because it's a heirloom quilt cardigan that I feel like a lot of people have talked about it. Rightfully so, because it's an absolutely beautiful pattern. I think I've also mentioned it on here before, but I'm gonna mention it again. Because the name heirloom is literally in the name, so it was made for this video. And I don't think this is necessarily something that's very timeless and elegant in that matter. Not to say it's not beautiful, but I think this one is more so super duper special in the sense that when this is passed down to you, you can just feel all of the hours and time that someone has spent knitting this garment, stitch by stitch, using a bunch of different yarns, scraps and leftovers from other projects. And I think that's what really makes this an heirloom piece. I think this is also more a labor intensive garment in the sense that you have to knit a bunch of little colorwork patches, you have to knit them flat and then you will seam them all together later and then do the ribbing and the sleeves. This feels like a wearable quilt or wearable blanket in that sense. Like lately you have also been seeing probably a lot of people that are cutting up quilts and then making them into jackets, which I have mixed feelings about, honestly. Also as someone that likes to quilt and sew. A part of me says it's really good because they are being used again, but then another part of me thinks that you should not cut into someone's work like that. Also because they're perfectly fine to use still as a blanket. Like, why do we feel the need to wear them? I'm not sure. Anyways, that's not what we're here about. This one is knit with DK weight on 4.5mm needles. And then you can also use fingering held double. There are a lot of projects on Ravelry of this one, so there's a lot of color inspiration to be found here. I have wanted to knit this actually for quite a while, and I think maybe this is going to be the year, but I'm not sure yet. The next pattern is also a cardigan. It's the Christollen Cardigan by Knits Pour More, and it's knit on 4.5mm needles with also a DK weight yarn. And I think this one is very classic in the color work and the shape of the cardigan. The color to me is not necessarily something that I would immediately gravitate towards, but it is something that I think is very vintage, timeless, and something that is also very unisex. I can also see a man or anyone basically wearing this garment. This cardigan comes in two sizes to fit a chest of 117 to 155 centimeters. In that sense, it's not the most size inclusive pattern because there's not a lot of positive ease for people with a larger chest. And then some people may not fit this because then they will have negative ease. So in that sense, it's not very good. But it is a beautiful design. And I do really like for an heirloom piece that there are patterns that have less sizes in the sense that they will fit more people. Then the final clothing item that I have for this video is one that I feel like is straight out of a vintage knitting booklet or magazine. And it's called the Barnes. And it's a beautiful all over cabled cardigan by, I believe her name is Sarah Solomon from Into the Wool. It's an Aran weight cardigan, so it's knit with Aran weight wool on 5.5mm needles. It comes in 8 different sizes ranging from a 105cm chest to a 185cm chest, around that. So this one is size inclusive, which is really great. Again, I really love the shawl or the collar neckline of this. I think it's very classic, and then I also really love that it has pockets and it's a longer length. This cardigan I can also really envision anyone wearing, like it can be a family cardigan that everyone just throws around when they're cold or chilly. This pattern also has a set-in sleeve feature, which I think is really nice. I picked this cardigan also because, like I said, it's something that I can really see in a vintage knitting pattern booklet. But then it's really nice that it's not actually a vintage pattern, because now there are a lot of new knitting techniques, so it's nice to be able to knit something that looks like it's maybe vintage, but then is more of a modern knitting technique. The next two patterns that I have are really beautiful shawls. The first one is called the Monarch Shawl by Lane Poudre. Maybe you noticed that French is not a language that I speak in my last video, so that's the best that I can do. It's knit on 4.5mm needles with a DK weight yarn, and I picked this because the lace of this is just so beautiful and elegant that I think this is also one of those that you can just see in a vintage store. yeah, someone in like the 1800s could have worn this shawl, basically. That's how beautiful it is. The next pattern that I have is the Augustines number 13 by Augustins Knitwear. And I actually think I want to knit this scarf or this shawl as well because it's so beautiful. It's knit on 5mm needles with, I think she has just a merino with a second strand of mohair, something like that. It doesn't really say the yarn weight, sadly. That lace edge is just really beautiful. It's maybe a little bit more challenging, of course, compared to the garter stitch, but I think the combination is very timeless and elegant. And I saw one of the projects that somebody made it in Katja Concept Cotton Merino, which is a yarn that I really like. And I think if you were to knit it in a blown yarn such as that, it would just also give a really beautiful and lightweight shawl. Next up, we're going into some blanket patterns, because I think a blanket is probably the first thing that you think about when you think of an heirloom knit. The first one that I picked out is called the Maximalist. It's by Yuki Knits. It's knit with DK weight yarn on 4mm needles and it comes in 2 different sizes. I basically chose this pattern because I thought it was very beautiful in a sense that it combines different types of stitches together. It's also the type of blanket where you just have a bunch of little patches that you then all seam together. And it really gives it a very quilted look. I think it's a very beautiful pattern. I think there's some kind of slip stitches. The next pattern that I have is a little bit similar to the previous one and it's called From Grandma with Love, which is just also a beautiful name for such an heirloom blanket. And the difference is that this one is knit with fingering weight yarn, so it uses a 3.25mm needle and it comes in 1 size. It also appears that the squares are a little bit bigger than the previous one, but this one also features lace and it's just really cute. I also think blanket projects like this would be just really nice to have on the needles, because you don't have like a huge blanket on your lap every time you're working on it and it gets heavy and that type of thing. You can just knit a little square and then do it once in a while when you feel like it, and then suddenly, maybe after a longer period of time, you will be able to piece together a blanket like this. And I think it would just be really cute and really special, and I really think I need to also have a blanket on my needles. The next pattern is also a blanket pattern and it seems to be a little bit of a DIY pattern, so it seems. It's called the Come Together Blanket by Kate Coyle, I believe is her name. And it's very interesting also because it's knit on 8mm needles with a bulky weight yarn. I'm not sure what kind of yarn I would use this if I were to knit it myself. I think I would just use DK weight yarn and size down the needle, but then keep the stitches count. I have not looked at this pattern even though it's free, but I really like that this one is garter stitch like I said. And then you just make squares that then they're like divided in half, so little triangles. And then she has instructions on how to piece them together in different quilt inspired ways. So also when you go to the project pages, there are so many beautiful projects here. And yeah, people just got really creative with this pattern. Lots of different colors, lots of different squares help piece together. Now I know it was just Christmas and it's going to be a long time until it's Christmas again. But I do have one pattern that I think would be very beautiful as an heirloom Christmas piece that you can just hand down to your children and so on. And it's called the Holiday Doodle Stocking. And I really like that it's Fair Isle. I think Fair Isle is really classic. The colors that she has in this one are very bright. So it's not maybe super timeless, but I think if you choose the right colors, then this could be something that fits in anybody's home and that would look really beautiful and something, yeah, like an heirloom piece. So this one is knit with DK weight yarn on 3.5mm needles and it also comes in 2 different sizes. So I think one would be really cute maybe to have as a children stocking or for pets or something like that. I live in a really small house, but one day I would love to also have a place where I could hang stockings, and I can definitely see myself having something like this. And I think it would also be really fun to have different kinds of stockings. Like for example one with cables, one with lace and one with color work. That would also be very cute, and then to have them in kind of the same color palette so they all go together. The next 4 patterns are all for children or babies. I know that's not everybody's cup of tea. I myself also don't have any children nor any plans to have those in the future. I think it would be really cute to have something in your family that you then pass down, and then you maybe take a picture with all of the babies or all of the children with that same item. I think that's a really fun thing to do. So the first pattern that I have in mind for that is called the Linder bonnet. This one is knit on 3 or 3.5mm needles with probably just like fingering or sport weight yarn. And I chose this one because of the lace, and it has some type of picot edge, so for me it feels very classic. I think this would work very well with a boy as well as a girl. And I just, like I said, I just picture a baby wrapped in a really cute hand knit blanket and this bonnet, and then taking a picture and then passing down that bonnet to their children. I think that's such a lovely idea. And if a bonnet is not really your cup of tea, because it's quite a unique sense of style, I would say, I do have another pattern for you, and that one is called the Artis hat. And this one also has a little bit of a lace border. You could probably also skip that and do some kind of regular border design, maybe some ribbed would be cute. And then it has a really beautiful crown as well with some lacy type of increases. It's knit on 3mm needles and it comes in 4 different sizes, so also for children. Actually, I would also be able to fit in the largest size of this, so it could also be just a cute summer hat if you wanted to make that. They made this in knitting for olive merino, which I think is a very suitable yarn for children knits, although I've never used it myself. The next pattern is something that I would actually really like to knit, but I have absolutely no reason to knit this, but I really want to. It's called the Good Bear and it's knit by Suzanne B. Anderson or Barrett Wool Co. It's knit with a sport weight yarn on 3.75mm needles, and it's just the cutest and most darling bear stuffed animal. I think stuffed animals are very cute in general to knit, but like I said, I don't have any children. I don't really see then a reason to knit a stuffed animal. Maybe I should just knit it for the sake of it for myself and put it on my desk. It would probably make me happy to look at it. And one little detail that I also love in this specific one is that the bear is wearing a little garter stitch jacket, and then the buttons are heart buttons. As you can tell, it's very easy to make me excited about something. Just put some heart buttons on it and then I want it. But it's just so cute. And then it's wearing a little hat, and you could make 2 of them and then they can be little friends, and it's adorable. And this designer, if you want to knit a stuffed animal, I would definitely look at her account because she has so many beautiful ones. And I think a bear like this would be very cute also for a baby, and then something that you can hand down. And then the other one that I chose, because I think it's a very classic animal, is a bunny. So this one is called the Christollen Bunny. It's knit with worsted weight yarn on 4.5mm needles. Equally as cute as the previous one. This one is also wearing a little colorwork sweater and also some stripy pants. Yeah, and I really like that this one has also ears that stand up. It just makes it better. It's just so cute. And also that sweater. I will put a picture on it, but that sweater is very cute. I also want to knit this. One day I will have these in my possession. But not anytime soon. So I hope this video gave you a little bit of inspiration as to things that you can knit. I know that they may not really necessarily be knits that you want to knit for yourself, but I do think they're very intentional, very timeless and very classic. So not just knitting something that you will enjoy, but then also thinking about being able to pass it down for generations or to your children or other loved ones, friends, family, anyone. I think that's really nice, and it also makes it more sustainable. Personally, I've never really thought about my knitting in that way. I just knit for myself and what I want to wear right now or what I want to knit right now. But I think this is a really nice concept and something to think about. Then I also just want to have a really quick mention, because I keep forgetting it, but I do really want to give a really big thank you and shout out to my technical editor for all of my knitting patterns so far. Her name is Mariev, and she also has a knitting podcast. It's called In Her Skein, and I really like her videos. She has a very calming and sweet personality, and her knits are also very beautiful. She uses a lot of, I would say, more neutral and natural colors and very elegant designs. So I would definitely go check out her knitting podcast. I will link it down below. And then also a really big thank you to everyone that helped me test knit this first design, my Hermione hat. It's very special to have hosted my first ever test knit, and I really enjoyed the experience. So if you would like to test knit for me, the link for the Mila Mini Shawl will be in my description, like I said. And then I will see you in my next video, which will be a nice knitting podcast, and hopefully I will have some things to show you, because I really have not been knitting a ton. But yeah, I'm excited for that. And I wish you all a very good day, happy knitting, and see you then. Bye bye!